Stampers, this is Lisa. Today we're going to work on a fun fold card that I think you're going to love. I actually did one for Halloween and then I did one for Christmas, and we're going to do another Christmas very similar, just with a different color palette and some different DSP. This is the card we're making today. It was inspired by something that Dawn Griffith did, and she called it a fold back pop-up card. Isn't that pretty? I mean, it's not very difficult. It looks like a whole lot, but it's not. You're going to be really surprised how simple this is. We have used this kind of a card base before, where it's 8.5 by 5.5, and we scored at 4 1/4, and then we scored again at 2 1/8. And we've done this where we've, had an extra circle or an oval that was on here. We've done it where we've used a die cut and, half the die cut popped out. So this is very easy. We've done this before. No need to panic there. Then we have just some straight strips of DSP. This one's 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. I have 2 of those. And I have another one of those, just a different designer series paper, because if you notice in the middle here, I alternated. So there's 2 different DSPs within the middle. And then these little corners over here, that's just a square that we're going to cut. This is 1 7/8 by 1 7/8, and we're going to go ahead and cut that diagonal to get our triangles. I have 2 pieces of cardstock that are 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. I have 2 pieces of white that'll go over that are 1.5 by 1.5. I have 2 pieces of the colored cardstock, I believe 2 3/4. Yep, 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. There's 2 of those. So these are 2.5 by 2.5, and I have 2 of those. Then I used our Merriest Frames dies. It's listed as hybrid embossing folder because it comes with the embossing folder and the dies, because they do work in conjunction. So that's those. Those are our smaller of the poinsettias. And then I have the smaller of the insert. These are done in Cherry Cobbler. This is Crushed Curry. And this is Evening Evergreen. So it's just kind of a different palette than this one that was more of a garden green, real red Daffodil Delight. Same idea. Like I said, the one I did for Halloween was the cute Halloween designer series paper, and it was done in orange and black and purple. So whatever occasion you have coming up, this fold's going to work. We can start really easy by just making this less pieces, because I know when I did this with my team, they were a little freaked out that there were so many pieces. So let's just go ahead and put our triangle, our little triangles. They're squares, but they're on point. So we're going to put those together first, because there's no stamping. It's going to be nice and easy. And then the flowers are going to go on top. So 1 on each one. And I went ahead and used the adhesive sheets on my yellow because that was so tiny. I didn't want to have to try to put glue on the back. My white had a little bit of a smudge, so I was spinning my flower to make sure that the cardstock covered up the smudge. When you have the adhesive sheet on the back, before die cutting, it's going to die cut out exactly the same, and you just need to pop it off with your take your pick tool. So there we go. We've already got less pieces, right? Then we know the designer paper is going to go flat, so we can go ahead and put that on. So now I'm going to bring in my trimmer. We're going to do our diagonal scores and cuts. One of these is going to go flat, so just like it is, we're going to put the sentiment on that. I want the Evening Evergreen square to be scored. And then I'm just going to nip a little bit off the edge. And that's because I don't want it to run into the other score line where the fold is. And you'll see what I mean in a minute, but just a little nip off the edge. Then you're going to take the other white square and we're going to cut this one down the middle. And then our designer series paper we're going to cut down the middle. So I'm just trying to keep an eye to make sure that we are in the track. And then I like to start with my blade in the middle, as you know, so we don't mush any corners. So these, now that it's been diagonally cut, they're going to go in the corners. I went ahead and cut my nails down on the one hand because one hand was so much longer than the other, but now it's weirding me out. Okay, so then this one, I don't know if you can really tell, but we're putting this diagonally in the center on the inside of the card. And I'm just kind of centering the point over here, making sure there's kind of an even space here and here. You may want to choose to line your points up on the DSP. And then we're going to put our sentiment right here. Now we want to remember this is going in diagonally. I know the first time I went to stamp it, I almost stamped it this direction because we're used to stamping things square, but we actually want to turn it on point, and that's another area where my grid paper is going to come in handy because I can line it up with the dark lines, and then I can still line up my stamp straight. So I can go ahead and lay this on a straight line, pull in my block, and then this is going to stamp straight. I'm going to line the edge of my block, align one of these on my graph, and so that's going to make it straight in the middle of our on point square. I want to let you guys know there's something Stampin' Up! Told us today, and that the whole world is having shipping problems. And so when they have something on back order, they've been given like arrival dates, and we kind of try to go by those, and we can't because they were saying it takes like sometimes up to a month just to get product to Riverton from Salt Lake City, which is only 20 minutes away. It's ridiculous. And so they're really struggling with how to keep us going. And they've decided that they're not going to do back orders anymore. So when they run out of something, they're just going to turn it off and it's going to be not orderable. And that's all going to take place December 1st. So if there's some things you want to get that you want to make sure that you're just paying the shipping the one time and you want it to come to you on a back order, there are several ink pads, and I ordered some papers. They were on back order. I guess the sale did better than they thought, which was, fabulous. But it put a few things on back order, so you might want to consider that if you want to get, in line for getting new paper. I know the basic white has completely sold out already. They said they estimated they would have enough for the 2-day sale, and it sold out in 2 hours. I mean, it's good for us. People are interested in stamping and they're buying, but it's hard to estimate those things. So please be patient with us. On that one, I just put half of the square onto that. And that was on purpose because that's the part that's going to mount up against here. And you're kind of wondering, where on there? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it over this one, and then I'm going to put my adhesive down. This is why I had to nip a little off the edge, because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to run into there. And I think what I want to do is actually give this a bit of a border. So I'm actually going to move it over a little more. So I'm going to get to where I want my border. So I've got, the green, white, green, white. This is where that nipped off edge needed to be. And then I'm just going to close my card. And that's going to pick up that center piece. I mean, that's the hardest part of this whole thing. And that's not hard, right? And then it's just going to get a flower like our other squares. For the 2 front ones, again, I'm going to line them on point. And I'm lining it up with the Designer Series paper. So I'm taking this edge and using it as my guide. And I'm going to do one low and one high. So you'll notice I'm just about, maybe 1/4 of an inch from the absolute top of the card to where my point is. You just want to make sure they're not going to, run over one another. So you do want them pretty far apart. And then you only want to put adhesive on half because we don't want to glue our card shut. And that's it. That's all there is to it. See, not that hard at all, right? So who's going to give this one a try? I know if you've just seen it on my blog, you may have been a little overwhelmed, but now that you've seen me put it together, I mean, it's not really that hard. And I don't know, it might need a little bit of bling. What do you think? Oh, thank you. That's one of the Gel Moment colors. Some of you know I've started selling Gel Moment because I'm just in love with it. It's a 1-coat polish, and it doesn't need a base coat or a top coat, and it dries in like 45 seconds, and the colors are gorgeous. But there we go. There's our card with a little bling. And we've even got, some red bling in the catalog. Might even look good in there. Some yellow. We've got our holiday rhinestones would have yellow. There's just any number of great things we could do with this. Those of you who are my customers know that the new catalog, we have sneak peek copies of them as a demonstrator. These come in our order, and we get to show you guys just the outside and any product we've purchased. So if you missed me last week, you might want to go and take a look at the replay, because I did show quite a few new products that I purchased, and I'm going to be purchasing more on December 1st. If you want to be able to purchase on December 1st, you're welcome to join my team, even as a hobby demo. And if you want to just stay a customer and pay full price, that's great too, and we'll get you a copy of the catalog, and you can order as of January 4th. So again, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week right here on Facebook Live. Thanks for joining me. Bye.